Welcome to Project Hardway. Hey, look at you. Whether you intended to or not, you thought about your safety and everybody else driving around you and decided you're going to put new ball joints on your Chevy S10 or other various GM rear-wheel drive vehicles. So, let's go through this together. Let's get into it. Now to get things started, I'm in the process of lowering the front end of my Chevy S10, and while I've got it all apart, well, you know, some of these things have seen better days. To change your ball joints, we don't have to go this far, but you do need to put the truck up in the air on jack stands. Then you'll need to take off the brakes. You'll need to remove the spindle to get access to these ball joints. The upper ball joint on Chevy S10s are held in by these big old honking rivets from the factory on the top, and on the bottom they are pressed into the lower control arm. So I've done this a couple of different ways in the past. I've used an air hammer, cring, cring, and knocked those rivets off and tap them out. I've gotten there with a grinder the best I could, and I've drilled them out. I think today we're going to drill these out. And for the bottom, we're gonna have to, if you don't have a tool, you're gonna have to go and rent one, okay? Just go to your local parts store. They'll have a ball joint press tool. You'll be able to get that out of here. So let's go ahead and get started on the top up here. We're gonna drill these rivets out and get ready to pop that new ball joint in the upper control arm. Now, as I said before, there's multiple ways to perform this task. You can use an air hammer, crink, grind it off, do whatever. You know, some people will use a chisel and make an X in it and then knock them off. I'm gonna do the drill method because, well, one, I don't have an air hammer for some reason. I need to add that to the list. And two, a drill and drill bit are, you know, what most people have easy access to. So an average guy out here working on his truck is gonna be trying to go at it with some form of method like this. So you don't have to drill all the way through this rivet. You just gotta get into the top of it to where this head can be knocked off of it. And then you can knock the rest out with a punch or your favorite flat tip screwdriver, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch drill bit. Get right in up on top of the center there and hope that I can keep it centered. Of course not. It might try to walk on you. Doesn't have to be pretty, just got to get in there. See, I changed the angle on it a little bit to start driving it back towards the center. What we got? Well, now what? Maybe I should have used a little bit bigger drill bit. Now I've got my chisel and a BFH. Oh, there it went. She gone. Getting her hot. There we go. That drill bit is past its prime. Got it. There we go. It's funny, the first one came off easier than any of them. Usually you think you get better at something the further you do it. All right, so now there's nothing actually holding this there except for what remains in the studs. So again, if you don't have a chisel, you know, use your dad's favorite flat tip screwdriver. See if we can smack that. Well, if I can aim for anything. Well, it's just in there, isn't it? No, we're starting to get a gap here. There we go. Doggone it. Get a punch and knock the rivets out. Probably gonna make it easier. There we go. Just gotta push a little bit. Okay, we're out. And that is the upper ball joint removed from the truck. There's one. Finally, some compliance. Not sure where my punch is, so we'll just use, you know, a good screwdriver. Speak softly, carry a big stick. Problem with the big stick is you don't always have, you know, room to swing it. Come on now. If I could just get a hold of the head on the bottom. Come on. There we go. See, it's out of there. If you can't knock it through, having a hard time with it, you can smack it down a little bit, grab a hold of it. Now, this is simple enough. Fortunately for us, the new replacement ball joints will bolt to the control arm. It comes with the new ball joint, a grease fitting there, and all the necessary hardware to put it back together. In most cases I've seen and done this, you put the bolt through the bottom, nut on top, and this just makes it a little bit easier, I believe, instead of trying to fight with the nut on the underside of this stamped arm. The nut that comes with this thing, I don't know if you can tell there, but it's squished. It's oval shaped, it's not exactly round. And the reason that is that once it starts to get into that portion that's squished, it grabs a hold of that bolt and hopefully never ever comes out. And the hardware that comes with these uses a 7/16 socket. Now I'm not going full torque the first time I hit them. I want to get all four of them kind of snugged into place, make sure we're squared up. I will go in a crisscross pattern. You can see I started there, went to that one, now I'll go to this one. And last little guy here. Then we'll use a combination wrench to do the final snug so I can feel just how much torque is really on there. That's the thing about the power tools. You don't always get a good feel for torque applied. And there we go. The upper ball joint is in. We're ready to move on to the lower. Not gonna grease this until I've got it all put together, because if I pump it full of grease right now, the boot will overexpand, balloon, and then when I put my spindle back on the truck and put it together, it's gonna squish out of there. And I don't want that. Just need to put enough in there for what we need. Moving on to the lower ball joint. Here's our new one. There's the boot for it. You see that this, you know, based on the way it looks, presses into the lower control arm. So you're gonna need a special tool for that. A quick trip to the local O'Reilly's has yielded me one of these loaner tool ball joint press tools. Gonna need a couple of coins in your pocket for this one. It's about $160 to rent, but when you're done with it, you take it back, you get your money back. So we've got to set this thing up in a configuration first to pop the old one out and then to pop the new one in. Okay, so you see my old ball joint here. There's the boot, what's left of it, completely gone. And the grease, well, that just might be original GM, you know, OEM grease there. That's the good stuff. No, it's old and needs to be gone. But you see here, it's not clicking up and down. Like a lot of times if you got a bad ball joint, you'll hear it when you hit bumps, and that's this stud moving around inside the housing. But I shouldn't be able to move it that easily. And all the ball joints on this truck were like that. So while we're here and we've got it apart, might as well replace it. So to push this out, it goes down through the control arm. We need one of these cups that will fit around the bottom of the ball joint here and press up against the bottom of the control arm. In this case, it's going to be the biggest one that comes in this kit. So we'll put that along with this on here. This big C-clamp's got a threaded side and a smooth side. We'll put it on the smooth side. Oof. Might be a little tight for space here, but there we go. Now I can just get that on there. We'll line that stud up here, thread this big old bolt through there, make sure the studs line up with the bolt, get everything straight, because I'm going to need to apply straight down force on this. And with something like this that wants to move around a lot, it could slip off there. Then we're starting over. All right, I think we are ready to begin. I'll just slowly apply pressure with my ratchet. until it starts to press it through. Whoop. See what I said about slipping off there? Start over. Let's try that again. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That stud wants to move around. So I'm slowly applying pressure, but also trying to keep it guided in the right direction with my finger, which is probably dangerous. Oh. Come on, you. Yeah, it's about to pop off there again. Let's see if I can catch it before it does. Yeah. There we go. Kind of tap it back in place a little bit there. See if we can get it lined up a little bit better again. You want that thing to be as centered as it possibly can. If it wobbles and moves, then it can pop off there. Got quite a bit of pressure on it with the ratchet. Now I'm going to hit it with my impact because I want to try to make quick work of it. This might just blow up in my face. Oh boy, thing is in there, isn't it? So far I don't feel like anything's really doing what it's supposed to. Well, it appears as though I'm pushing the bottom out of the ball joint instead of pushing the ball joint out of the control arm. Great! Okay, sit rep. I've gone in, I've tried to clean up around this area, put some penetrating oil in it. I also took the stud out of the end of the bolt and just let the ball joint go in there. It can only go in there so far, and then we're not fighting the thing going around. We're just gonna, you know, try not to break this bolt. I think that's all that my impact's got. Back to the breaker bar. Just give her the beans. Yep. One of two things is gonna happen. Either this ball joint's going to come out, or the ball joint is going to break, which I think it just did. And then we're gonna be left trying to dig out the housing out of the control arm. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with now. Oh, great, now that's stuck on there, isn't it? Oh no, that may have been the ball joint coming out. Hey! Yeah, get out of the way, brake caliper. Oh, we should have just kept pressing, shouldn't we? There we go! Finally, what a pain. What a silly thing. There is that old floppy ball joint. So look, it did break the bottom of it. That did not want to go without a fight. So of course now we're left with this dirty old thing here. I'll wipe that clean. Make sure that there's no garbage in there. Because remember, we gotta press that new one in now. So here's our new ball joint. See, it's got a grease fitting on the bottom. We're not gonna put that in just yet. We're gonna wait until we've got it pressed into the control arm. Essentially, it'll go in here. So to get this going, I've got the stud put back in that bolt. I'm going to use this cup here. Probably put it this way to give me some room. Actually, hold on. We gotta make sure that when we press this thing in, we press only on this area here. If we press on the center there, we're gonna break our new ball joint, right? If I do it that way, that's not what we're looking for, is it? So, we're gonna have to put this on like you see it here and make sure that stays centered up. Then I'm gonna need a cup on top that will just set on the control arm and allow the ball joint to go through it without restricting the ball joint's movement. So might as well just go ahead and use that big one again. I'll put this on top. That big hole right there is going to allow the stud for the ball joint to go through it as we press it into the control arm. Make sure we get everything lined up exactly as it should be. Don't want anything slipping or my ball joint turning sideways inside the control arm. Now come down here and start putting some pressure on it. Son of a biscuit! You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? All right. Well, try that again. Come on now. There we go. See if we can get this going now. Are you ready, kids? Not quite. That bottom plate is shifted a tick. All right. I think we're doing something now. Oh boy, that requires some leverage. I'm thinking I should probably just put a jack under the control arm. That would make sense though, wouldn't it? I came to my senses a bit and put a jack under there so it would hopefully stabilize it a bit. Now I get the breaker bar, see what we can do to get the rest of this thing put in there. Oh gosh, that takes some torque. Oh gosh. Cherry Pepsi. Feel like it's going in there sideways. I mean, eventually it'll straighten out, right? I guess. Doggone. Put your back into the oar. Golly. Oh, man. Now I've resorted to a jack handle on the end of my breaker bar. I feel like this is becoming increasingly dangerous. Golly. I'm bending my breaker bar. So right now, it looks like the ball joint is not lined up and they're going straight. I'm not sure if I should stop and reset my tool or keep on going. So, I think I'm gonna keep on going. I mean, something's gonna break eventually. Whoa, yeah. Almost there. Ow. Pretty much you gotta turn until you can't. That pop was it. Can't get him back in to the right position. We are almost home. One day I'm gonna invest in a press. Just not today. There we go. Ball joint in there. Now that I've got that ball joint installed, before I put the boot on, I'm just gonna go ahead and put a little bit of grease on it while it's exposed. Just so it'll move around a little easier while we are working on getting the rest of the suspension put back together. It's just like with the top one, I don't want to put grease in there all the way until I've got the spindle back on the truck. That way we don't squish too much out of it. And I'll just slide it back and forth, work some of that grease down into it. There we go. She's moving a little bit easier now. Now here's our boot. Nothing fancy on it, it just slides and kinks down on top of there. Look out for little divots or slots like this. If you see something like that on there, it's going to be a relief for excess grease. You want to mount that inboard towards the frame rail, so if you do squish some extra grease out of there, it's not coming out on the side that your brake rotor's on. Now I'm ready to set that in place. This thing kind of snaps into position over the ball joint. You can't just simply push on it too easily and make it seat. Some people will press down on one side and then they'll hit it with something on this side and it'll pop down. I'm not having such luck. So this little thing that came here with the ball joint press tool may just do the trick. Did that get it? All right, I think we're on there. Now I've got the front suspension all put back together, got my spindles in place, now I'm ready to grease my ball joints. The reason I didn't do this before was because if I sit here and I pump these things up full of grease with them just sitting here, when I go to put this spindle on, it's gonna squish this boot. And when it squishes that boot, it's gonna squish all that excess grease out. So now for the bottom, I did not put this grease fitting in when I assembled this because I knew that I was gonna be putting a jack under this control arm to raise and lower the control arm while putting the spring and everything else back on. Didn't want to break this off. Got everything back together, so now I will put this fitting back into the ball joint. This is an 8mm piece. Essentially just gonna run this down till it stops. Careful, you will break it. It's not, you know, it doesn't need 100 foot-pounds. Bust out my cheap old grease gun. This top fitting, and this just snaps on there. This top ball joint looks like it's already got grease in it, so I'm just gonna pump it up and make sure of that. So while I'm watching, as I squeeze in the grease, and I'm looking for excess grease to be squeezed out of the boot. Just a little bit. As soon as you start to see a sign of anything, you know you've got it in there. Oh, I heard a pop. That was some air getting out. Oh, and I can just see some grease beginning to trickle out on the back side. Now I'll do the same for the bottom. Actually, I can watch it here. I don't know if you'll see that. Where'd my light go? Who turned off the lights? But you can actually see that boot, maybe not on camera, but you see the grease go into it and it starts to kind of balloon. You see it expand with each pump. There we go. Ball joints are installed, fresh grease in them. This thing is ready for me to finally put it back together and get it going down the road. Thanks for watching today's video. I hope this helped you out with changing the ball joints on your vehicle. If you want to go back and see the videos of me putting this truck in the current state it's in, go back, take a look at the channel. Hey, give your boy a subscribe. It'd be great. Remember, sometimes you gotta do things the hard way.